Hey there, my name is Mark, and if you're seeing me for the first time, I go by the pen name Mark Allard Will as a comic book writer, and I'm from Saskatoon in Saskatchewan in Canada. Last weekend I had the privilege of attending Saskatoon Entertainment Expo, and when I say that I attended, my wife was tabling there as a guest comic creator. Her name is Elena Will, and she is also an illustrator and writer within the comic book medium. So why am I making this video today? Well, perhaps you go to Comic-Con style events attracted in by the lore of the celebrities, the TV, the movie, the video game, the otherwise pop culture ephemera guests, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But maybe, just maybe, you have been missing the Canadian comic creator and author talent right under your nose at these style of events. So my plan is to turn on a spotlight and kind of shimmy it to focus it on to those such creators. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to them and allow them to introduce themselves to you.
My name is Frank Krylicki, the owner of Cutting Edge Comics. We're an independent comic book publishing company out of Lloydminster, Alberta. How did I get involved with this? It was easy. I retired early. These comics have been my hobby for 35 years, 40 years, and I just decided now's the time to get to do what I love to do, which is writing. So I'm the writer, and we have 3 different artists who work on the books with us.
Fantastic. And so Lloydminster, that's not really known for its comic creators. How's the local response been?
It's been fabulous. I've got a book signing lined up for the middle of June, and all the local guys and gals are excited about it. We're in a couple bookstores in Lloydminster, and so yeah, it's going really well.
Fantastic. And could you tell us a little bit more about the House of Wonders?
Yes, House of Wonders is all about Sky Cruiser. At a young age, he's from a dysfunctional family. He runs away, joins a circus. Later realizes the circus is actually from his home planet. He doesn't realize he's an alien, and they're sent to protect him and watch over him. Eventually, when he grows up, they realize he's needed back on his home planet, but it's a planet that has turned their back on him initially, so he has to make the decision of whether he's going to go back and save the planet that disowned him, or whether he's going to stay on the planet that embraced him. So that's really the story. It's Star Wars meets the X-Men.
Fantastic. And where can viewers find your work online?
www.cuttingedgecomics.ca is where they can buy it online. And yeah, we're just really excited to be at the comic convention here today. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to meeting Jonathan Frakes. I'm trying to track him down and get him a copy of this book because I think he's going to love it.
Sure, my name's Cam Hayden. I'm a cartoonist from Calgary. When I was a kid, I kind of was introduced first to Mad Magazine before, your superhero stuff. So that kind of set the direction for me, I suppose. So I don't have a lot of superhero comics, but I'm a big fan of, like I said, Mad and Cracked and lots of underground comics. So that's sort of the direction I went. So
your work is quite unique, though. Tell me about your style and how you landed upon that style.
I think I just liked drawing stuff that was funny. Even when I would try to draw like a superhero or something, it would end up funny because it was some messed up somehow. Usually they'd be all covered in sweat or throwing up or crapping their tights or whatever. So I kind of just went that direction. I leaned into it. So that's what a lot of my stuff is. I don't know. I grew up on Mad Magazine, so that's the stuff I liked. All those weird, great artists they had.
Fantastic. And where can viewers find your work online?
I've got an Instagram account if they're looking for me. That's usually a good entry point. And then if they want to go deeper, I've got a Patreon account. And I usually do previews of all the stuff that ends up in my books. So you can get a sneak peek at it. And a lot of stuff that doesn't end up in books because I don't really know what to do with it. So I'm starting to compile a lot of odd, weird things that might end up in a book one day, but I'm not really sure. It's some stuff I don't know if it has an audience because it's a little specific and weird, but there's a lot of it on my Patreon account. Plus, like all these books, like these 2 books here are all collections of submissions that I sent out to various magazines and stuff once the pandemic started. So I didn't really have an outlet for them at convention tables, so I started submitting to magazines. So those 2 books are just collections of all the submissions, and a lot of them made it into magazines, which was a surprise to me, because again, they were a bit weird, so I wasn't sure. It was sort of like kind of a goof, like, oh, they'll never take this, and then they did in a lot of cases. But some cases they didn't, so you can see the ones that didn't meet anyone's standards, but mine, because I put them in my book, so, you know.
Hi, I'm Chris Cam. I write Cover of Darkness. It's a dark fantasy meets horror graphic novel series, retelling of your classic monster origin stories. And we've put in medieval Romania and pitted our monsters against a family. We take that family, brutally tear them apart, and put them on a collision course with all the monsters in our world. I started writing, actually my cousin George and I write it together. And in 2017, we walked out of the Calgary Comic Expo and we said, there's not enough monsters out there. And he's like, I have a mummy story that I have in my head. And I'm like, I have a Frankenstein story that I think would make a cool story. And we just kind of ran with it from there, because when you have the Mummy and Frankenstein, that's a good chunk of your classic Universal monsters.
And where can viewers find your work online?
You can find me at Source Point Press. I'm also on Instagram under Cam Crystal, which is spelled CamChristal, Cam Crystal on Instagram. And Source Point Press is our publisher. They picked us up, and you can find us on their website as well. Thank you.
Oh, my name is Carson Demmons. I've been a humor writer for more than 30 years. I started off submitting gags to all of the comic strips in my local paper, and I ended up being in 3 of those. After that, I started contributing to Crack Magazine, European Disney Comics, and just about anything else that I could find that would take our work. Comics was always my goal. The last few years I did branch out into short stories for different horror anthologies. We've also done a history book about comics that would never get published again today unless you really wanted to get arrested. So all in all, I've pretty much hit all the bases over the last 30 years, from full-length books to one-sentence sales.
Fantastic. And how did the Cartoons magazine come around?
I've always made it a practice in the last few years to query about just about every new magazine that comes onto the stands, either by email or letter, or sending them samples of our work. 95% of the time it doesn't fall through, but with Cartoons, it's a Canadian publisher set in Thunder Bay. He needed someone to contribute Canadian content, so we ended up creating Demolition Deer and Motor Moose, a deer and a moose here in Saskatchewan who discovered they can't be hunted if they're on the highway, so they just never leave the highway. They drive all over the province getting into trouble.
Fantastic. And you've had a long working relationship now with Jason Sylvester.
We started working together back in 2012. We actually met at our office Christmas party. We were working in the same legal aid office in Regina. I told someone I did comics as a hobby, and someone introduced me to Jason saying he did the same thing. By May of 2012, we had our first book out, about 6 months after we first met. So the first one was a national bestseller. The rest have not been, but we've always had a lot of fun and still working together, still doing cartoons every issue, still pitching out new book ideas. We've got 3 books under contract with one publisher, another with another, but all seem to be in limbo. So we deal with a lot of micro publishers, because obviously we're not big names in the business, but when the project comes out, it's always a big thrill.
Fantastic. And where can viewers find your work online?
A lot of our stuff is carried through Amazon. especially all the Saskatchewan books, all the stuff we've done through Hellbound Press, so all the horror stuff, as well as Bear Manor. They not only have their own site, but most of their stuff is on Amazon as well. But Jason and I have always said, if necessary, we'll come to your house.
I'm Charlene Clark. I've created Lemons, the graphic novel. I have the first issue completed. I'm currently working on the second issue. It is a horror story of witchcraft, demonic soul reaping, and vengeful violence smothered in gore. I got into comic book creating, I guess, from when I was a child. I've always liked to draw, write stories, and paint. I started to try to venture into actually printing my graphic novels just recently, this year. So I'm brand new to this and learning along the way.
Fantastic. And I hear that you're a seasoned tattoo artist. How does that experience play into your work as a comic creator?
Yeah, so I've been tattooing for 11 years. It's a profession that I chose to create art and make money. It definitely plays a big part in my comic book making. I found being a tattoo artist has definitely strengthened my skills as an artist, but also continuing to paint has strengthened my skills as a tattoo artist as well.
Fantastic. And where can viewers find your work online?
They can find my work on Instagram. My tag is @lemons_graphic_novel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching today. It's been a privilege to bring this video to you. These videos are a lot of work. They're edit heavy behind the scenes, and in the first instance for shooting them, I was actually having to run the very busy Free Comic Book Day event and incredibly, insanely busy, very big sale that we were running at Collector's Edge Comics and Games in downtown Saskatoon at the same time as hopping between there and the venue to shoot with the creators. As a result, I didn't get time to shoot with everybody, and I apologize for that. However, if you do feel like supporting my work, because these are a lot of work, what you can do is you can jump on over to the links in the description of this video. For example, there is a link when you can go and donate via Ko-fi if you just wish to support my work without any strings attached. There's also the option to go and buy a book from my online store, again, link in the description, where I can sign one of my books and have it shipped direct to your door anywhere in the world if you have had your interest piqued in my work by watching this video. If not, and you just enjoyed this video, well, thank you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.